Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to Q1 FY22 results call of Mass Financial Services hosted by Systematix Institutional Equities. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star then 0 on your touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Shubhranshu Mishra from Systematix Institutional Equities. Thank you and over to you, sir.
Hi, thank you. So today we are hosting Mass Financial Services. We are joined by Mr. Kamlesh Gandhi, Chairman and Managing Director, Mrs. Darshana Pandya, Director and CEO, Mr. Ankit Jain, the CFO, and members of the senior management team. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, and good evening to all of you. And I wish all of you are in good health, your family, your colleagues are doing well. So happy to connect to all of you once again. As shared with you through our press note and investor presentation, once again in Q1 also we are focused on strengthening the fundamentals, mainly on strengthening the capital base, maintaining sufficient liquidity, high quality of assets, and maintaining the provisioning buffers because of this unprecedented times, and constantly engaging with the investors. Constantly engaging with our customers. So as a result of it, as I talked to you, we have more than 25% as Tier 1 capital. We have managed to maintain our asset quality at around less than 2% of next stage 3 asset at 1.72, accompanied by a very strong buffer, which is not netted off when we calculate this next stage 3 asset of 1.34%. So we have a 1.3% of an additional buffer, which we have practically not dipped into throughout this pandemic period once it has been created. On the performance of the quarter, while as we all know that 2 quarters and 2 periods Q1Q or Y&Y are not at all comparable, but just to the basic numbers, and then it will be followed by my colleague Darshana Pandya to take you through in detail. We could register a AUM of 5,170 crores approximately, which is a dip of around 9% as compared to last quarter Y&Y, and mainly because of the collection exceeding the disbursement. And as we all know that it was a very difficult quarter for everybody, where April and May were practically under no business zone, and whatever we could muster was the latter part of May and in June. So with that collection exceeding our disbursements, there was a shrinkage of AUM by 9%. But however, we could maintain our profitability more or less at a stable level Q1Q and Y&Y at close to around 37 crores. And as I shared with you, with quality of assets being stable at 1.72%, net stage 2 of 1.72% of our AUM. Our focus continues to be on our basic products, that is MSME two-wheelers, SME two-wheelers and commercial vehicles, where MSME and micro enterprise and SME loans forms the major part of our asset under management by two-wheelers and commercial vehicle loans. So this was about the working as far as the parent company is concerned. And just to add to that, on the collection efficiencies, we had an average collection efficiency of 93% in this quarter, increasing every month from April to May to June. And as I talk to you, we are at close to around 96.5% in our collection efficiencies, very close to our normal 97-98% what we usually maintain. On the restructuring front, to share with you, we are in the process of assessing the financial position of various borrowers who we work with, and we'll be in a position to complete our assessment this quarter. And in confidence to our policy of not rushing it into restructuring very aggressively, we would be doing restructuring this quarter depending upon the merit of the cases, so as not to spoil the history of the borrowers who are genuinely affected by this pandemic wave. On housing finance, as I shared with you last quarter, that in the medium term we see housing finance to play an important role in the overall scheme of things of the group. We could register a AUM of 294 crores, which was a slight increase as compared to last quarter, that is Y-on-Y basis. And there also the quality of the asset is maintained at 0.56% of net stage 3 asset, and with a COVID buffer almost intact of 3 crores, which is around 1.15% of our on-book assets, and a very strong capitalization of 49% because of the risk weightage, because of the risk weightage assigned to this asset, and in the class which we are working is less. So that is about the working in housing finance company. There is a contraction in PAT by 21%, mainly because of higher provisioning. The last quarter being in the moratorium period, there was not much provisioning done in the housing finance company. So instead of 1.05 crores of PAT in Q1 21, it's around 0.82 as in Q1 22. So there also we have a very strong balance sheet to grow the asset once the thing normalizes, and we are very hopeful that this something will start contributing very positively in our overall growth. So before I hand over to Darshan, let me reiterate that the company is well poised to capitalize on all the future growth opportunities because of a very strong capital base, very strong liability management. Just to share with you, we had a liquidity buffer of close to 1,000 crores. Currently, we have a debt tie-up almost for the complete year in terms of our assignment term loans and various facilities. And the distribution of through 3,500 centers and also through our partner NBFCs, we are very confident that once the things normalizes, which I think will be sooner than later, and it has already started, we'll be in a position to go back to the trajectory of our 20-25% growth, which we have been doing since years. And we have all the enablers for the same. To take you through some detailed numbers for you to understand nicely, I will pass it on to my colleague Darshan to take you through those numbers. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, everybody. So as such, the numbers are in front of you. Press release is also there and presentation is also there for your reference, but would like to take you through the key numbers very briefly. As on 30 June 2021, our assets under management stands at 5,162 crores, which is the contraction of 8.77% as compared to last quarter, whereby SME and commercial vehicle loan has contributed positively, and micro enterprise loan and two-wheeler loans has come down. So if I give you the configuration of the asset, 2,762 crore is from micro enterprise loan, which was last year 3,424 crores. SME loan is 1,813 crores as compared to 1,674 crore last year. Two-wheeler loan is 375 crore as compared to 400 crore last year, and commercial vehicle loan is 211 crore as compared to 158 crore last year. Total income as on June 21 is 148.50 crore as compared to 160 crore. Once again, there is a contraction of 7.42%, which is in line with the reduction in asset under management. Profit before tax is 49.53 crore as compared to 48.92 crore last year. And profit after tax is 36.83 crore as compared to 36.59 crore last year, which is more or less stable. Regarding the quality of the assets, gross stage 3 assets is 2.21% as compared to 1.41%. And after provisioning, net stage 3 asset is 1.74% as compared to 1.14% last year. And here I would like to mention that we have not netted off the COVID provisioning of around 54 crores, which is 1.34% of our on-book assets. So this was regarding the parent company. Now coming to our housing finance numbers. Asset under management as on Q1 22 is to 295 crores as compared to 284 crore last year, which is a slight increase in portfolio, 3.71%. Total income is 8.89 crore as compared to 8.77 crores, which is 1.41% rise in income. Profit before tax is 1.06 crore as compared to 1.41 crore. And profit after tax is 0.82 crores as compared to 1.05 crore last year. The reduction in PBT and PAT is mainly because of higher provisioning during Q1 22. Regarding asset quality of housing finance portfolio is gross stage 3 stands at 0.59% as compared to 0.36% last year, and net stage 3 is 0.42% as compared to 0.26% last year. Here also we have a provision of around 3 crores, COVID provision, which is 1.15% of our on-book assets. So this was regarding the performance during the Q1 22. Now I'll request Ankit to take you through our capital and liability management.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. So good evening all. To further elaborate on the liability management, the company through its efficient liability management was able to maintain a liquidity buffer of around 800 crore and unutilized cash limit of around 485 crore, which accumulates to around 1300 crore, which is the liquidity which the company has. Addition to that, the company has sanctions on hand to the tune of another 1300 crore in the form of term loan and direct assignment. In the last quarter, the company did around 200 crore direct assignment transaction. The company has further more than 1000 crore sanctions on hand, which will be utilized during the year. The company aims to maintain a 25% of AUM as an off-book to direct assignment transaction, which help us to maintain the capital adequacy as such. Company has available cash facility of around 1820 crore, out of which company maintains utilization level of around 65 to 70%, and rest portion is kept as a liquidity buffer. We successfully rolled over around rupees 1100 crore short-term working capital loan, which has sub-limit to this cash credit limit. Further, company raised around 100 crore term loan during the quarter. This helped us to further strengthen the asset liability maturity pattern. The company further has more than 300 crore sanction on hand, which will be utilized during the current year. During the quarter, company also raised rupees 100 crore market-linked debentures for a tenure of 13 months. And the company has also assessed its structural liquidity for the period ended 30th June, and based on the assessment, there is no negative impact on the liquidity, and the cash flow in all cumulative buckets remain positive. As told, company's capital adequacy remains strong at 28.42%, with a Tier 1 capital base of 26.54% and debt equity of 2.93 times. And the cost of borrowing for the quarter works out to be 8.72%, vis-a-vis the last year, which was around 9.24%. So we were able to reduce our cost of borrowing, and we further work towards how to reduce the cost of borrowing further. Now I hand over the call to Kamlesh sir for closing remarks.
So now, thank you, Ankit, and we are open to take questions.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on the touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. The first question is from the line of Bhavesh Kanani from ASK Investments. Please go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity. I had two questions. One on the growth. Now, in this quarter, Q1, we saw that disbursements have stayed quite healthy, especially when we compare to similar kind of operating conditions in the year ago quarter. So, should we expect the pace of disbursements to pick up from here on? That is one. And second one was on the asset quality side. It has held up pretty well, except for the absence of any restructuring during the quarter. So, do we have any request pipeline as on today? And if you can quantify any such restructuring pipeline or request we would have received.
So yes, we are expecting a good disbursement this quarter going by the June numbers, because what the majority of the disbursement was done in last 40 to 45 days. Obviously, that was the work of the earlier days by the team. So if that same pace continues, we should have a good disbursement this quarter. And we are already witnessing the same in July and around 10 or 12 days of August. So I'm very hopeful that the disbursement will pick up. In terms of the asset quality, yes, we have worked very hard to maintain this asset quality, and we are engaging with various borrowers as to their requirement. And as I talk to you, we have close to around 15 to 20 crores as restructuring demand, which will be evaluated closely, and then we would like to engage with them and give them the offer based on our board policy and the RBI directives.
Okay. And sir, if I can add one more question. Given the view you just shared on the disbursements, is it right to expect AUM growing by end of the current fiscal?
So definitely it should. Just to share with you, as a team mass, and I'm sticking my neck out on this. As a team mass, you know that we don't have only a quarter or a two of visualization. We visualize ourselves within the next 12 to 15 quarters, so within the next 3 to 3.5 years, what looks like a combined AUM of around 5,600 crores should be close to around 10,000 crores. This is what we are trying to aim, provided we are not surprised by anything nasty the way we are seeing in last 1.5 years. And definitely this year should see a growth, maybe based on the Q1 numbers. So because Q1, we all know that Q1 was around half the Q1 or more than half the Q1 was wasted in pandemic.
Okay. And lastly, sir, any update on recoveries from the Samban Finserv?
Outside, the recovery agent has been appointed, and the total recovery as of now, as per the last information I got, is around 32 to 33 crores, which has been lying in an escrow account. And once the intercreditor agreement is signed, the same will be distributed accordingly.
And what share we would have in the total scheme of things?
I think around 7 to 8%.
Okay. That's all from my end, sir. Thank you. Best of luck.
Thank you. We would like to remind participants that you may press star 1 to ask a question. The next question is from the line of Shubhranshu Mishra from Systematix Institutional Equities. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. I had two questions right now. So one is, what is the percentage of AUM sourced by partner NBFCs over the last 2 to 3 quarters? And second is, if I look at the housing finance subsidiary, it has barely made any kind of profit in the last 3 odd years, maybe around very low profit pools. So what is the thought process there? I mean, should we even have that subsidiary if it is not making enough profits? So these are my 2 questions as of now, sir.
To answer your first question, as you know that around 57% of our AUM is contributed by the distribution network through NBFCs, and 43% is through our 3,500 centers reach. So that was the proportion we have been maintaining since last 2-3 quarters also. Let me come to your question on housing finance subsidiary. I think that is going to contribute meaningfully in coming years. And if you see any housing finance companies, they take time in the initial years to grow, and the profit has been in lines with the AUM. At around 200-300 crores of AUM, the profit has been, we have been profitable. First of all, to be profitable at a small base itself is a challenge. And then also to maintain a return on assets of close to 1.25% even on a lower base of AUM reflects of an efficient management. So we are very hopeful on our housing finance subsidiary. It will be a day for us with the group very long, and it will contribute very meaningfully.
Sure, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. We would like to remind participants that you may press star 1 to ask a question. The next question is from the line of Anand Bhavnani from White Oak Capital. Please go ahead.
Thank you for quantification of stage 2 and stage 3 assets for each.
Your voice is breaking, sir. We are unable to hear you.
Just a second. Is it better now?
Yes, sir. You may
Yes.
go ahead.
Yeah. So just wanted to understand if you can give us some numbers on segment-wise stage 2 and stage 3 for each of our sub-segments.
Segment-wise, stage 3, I think overall it is 2.21. And on segment-wise on Wheel, we are approximately close to 3% on stage 3. Whereas the major part of our portfolio, that is SME and the micro enterprise loans, are in the range of around 1.5 to 1. That is Wheel. And in MSE loans and in SME loans, it is average of around 2%. 2.13 in annual loans and 1.95 in SME loans, that is stage 3.
And sir, what will be the stage 2?
And in stage 2, we are, just give me a minute, I'll translate into a percentage.
Or you can give the absolute. We have the segment-wise figures. You can give the absolute figures and we'll do the math.
1 minute. This is absolute figure, right? This is absolute figure. Stage 2 in two-wheelers, we are close to 8 crores. MEL loans, we are around 42.39 crores. SME is around 52 crores. And in SRTO, it is around 7.51 crores in stage 2. So that gives you a total of 110 crores.
Sir, out of our total, what is originated through partners?
Through partners, as I told you, through our NBFC distribution, we have around close to 57 to 58% of our book coming from our NBFC partners.
But it is equally distributed across all the segments?
No, it is around 40% must be coming from our MFI partners, and the rest 60% coming from two-wheelers, commercial vehicle, and SME partners.
So SME, largely the book is our own. You said out of 57, 40 is MFI and remaining 15-17% SME and MSME. So that means largely MSME, SME is done by us, maybe 80%, right?
That's the policy of the company, that you would like to have the distribution tie up with the NBFCs who are in the same line of activity. So while our main focus is MSME and SME, we would like to have majority of the tie up with all the partners who are into SME and MSME business.
Okay, I'm still not sure if I understood the business well. What percentage of SME and MSME book is done directly by us?
See, on product to product in annual, around 60% must be done directly by us, whereas in SME, around 65%, because majority of the business done through partners is in MFI and SME, and in two-wheelers and commercial vehicle also the same range, around 40 to 45% is through partners, and the rest will be through us.
Okay. Sir, just trying to understand the business a bit better. We do a lot of this in MSME and SME directly, so there is no balance sheet question of the partner, and yet we have been able to have very low stage 2 and stage 3. So what has helped us to get such good asset quality even in direct loans where there is no question of the partner NBFC?
You see the retail portfolio, as I told you, that around 57% of the business we source across product in different proportion in percentage, give or take 5 or 10% here or there. The intermediation is through our partners, whereby the credit cost is absorbed by them. So in whatever the credit cost we are seeing is more or less on the retail portfolio, which has been originated by us. But how it works out on the yield matrix is that when we work with the partners, whatever the anticipated loss, depending upon the product is built upfront in the yield. So say for example, directly I might be doing at 18%, but through partners I might be doing it around 13 or 14%. So ultimately what we aim at is to maintain anywhere between 2.75 to 3.25% ROAs, depending upon the distribution we do. If we do through NBFC, we pass on that credit cost upfront to the NBFC. So if they have a better credit management, they can save on money, and if they lose more than what has been anticipated, they have to share from their profit. And in our direct, we get higher yield, but at the same time, the credit cost is also higher as far as the retail direct portfolio is concerned. So the hybrid of it is maintained in such a manner that we maintain anywhere between 2.75 to 3.25% of return on assets, while having a fair amount of control on the quality of the assets.
Sure, sir. In fact, overall, in whatever current NPA we see, is it fair to say that 90% would be in the book that we have originated, because anyway the first loss guarantee in the partner NBFC book would ensure that most of the losses are currently and the NPAs would be flowing to them. And is that the right expectation, that on 60%, so 60% of the book is like responsible for maybe 90-95% of the stage 2 and stage 3 in our...
Right. They absorb it.
Yeah. And sir, given that we work with NBFCs and currently these NBFCs might also be incrementally getting a lot more options to work with banks and other larger NBFCs, given system credit uptake is weak. So are you seeing any deterioration in terms that you work with these NBFCs because they're getting more options from other banks, PSUs or private sector?
So it's a continuous process. This is a decade-old relationships with all these NBFCs. And I've shared number of times that in NBFC business, the assets and liabilities runs down continuously. As far as mass is concerned, our relationships with NBFC is not just like a corporate funding, but it is always like building up the last, helping them to do the last mile delivery of credit, and at the end of the day, build up the same assets which you build up directly. So the consistency from what they get from us is unparalleled, so to say. So our expected business with them, despite of the fact that they grow, they pour in more capital, they have more options, but the share what we want in terms of amount, we are in a position to maintain since last 10 years, and we are seeing strong traction because of our performance over all this decade. So given our consistency and understanding of the sector, we get an opportunity to partner with all the NBFCs irrespective of their size. Hello.
question is answered. Mr. Bhavnani? Thank you. The next question is from the line of Deepak Agarwal from Axis Mutual Fund. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, sir. Thank you for the opportunity, sir. So wanted to understand on the growth side, you did mention that in the longer run, over a 3 to 4 year period, you would want to see the AUMs closer to 10,000 crores. In terms of composition of growth between the growth via NBFCs and what you originate organically in your own books. So your thoughts there, is it like it will be much more in favor of retail compared to NBFC? How should we look at the split, sir, over next 3 4 years?
Obviously, because we plan to increase 1,500 centers to not less than 5,000 centers. Because in all the 6 states of area of our operations, we are not penetrated as deep as we are penetrated in Gujarat. And having worked there for more than 3 to 5 years on an average in each of the states, we are geared up to penetrate those states also deeply. So given this fact, our contribution from the retail assets will increase. Looks like 57-43% in favor of NBFC might look reverse in favor of our direct retail, that it might be 65-35 is what we presume.
Got it. And the second question, so in terms of the product, so obviously we have a large SME book. SME will continue to be the growth driver, or you think others, as you mentioned, like home finance or two-wheeler commercial, any one of them, because some of them look to be subscale right now, considering your own balance sheet size. So is it predominantly an SME lending, or how should we look at it?
Well, definitely the focus will remain on the MEL and the SME space, because we have been the niche player since last 25 years. But with normalization of the economic growth, we will find opportunities in commercial vehicle, two-wheelers, and used car also. So I presume that what looks like 80-10 should look like around 75-25 in terms of wheels contributing 25 and 75% coming from MEL and SME.
Got it. And sir, just last question, sir. Any thoughts on SFB license? How do you look at that opportunity?
We continue to harbor the thought that as SFB, we are not going to do anything different. We are going to serve the same class of the society. And in terms of liability management, if you are well capitalized and given our track record with the various bankers and various lending institutes, for us to raise liability at a competitive rate has not been a problem. And what all being the SFBI we save on interest rate can be absorbed in the operational cost and lot of regulatory compliances. I think we are better place of focusing on the asset side of the balance sheet, creating an efficient last mile delivery of credit at the segment we work in. This is what currently strategically we believe in.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Abhijit Tibrewal from Motilal Oswal. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for taking my question. So I just had one question, but before that, if you could please repeat the product-wise or segment-wise stage 3 and stage 2 numbers that you gave. Unfortunately, my line was not good. So requesting you if you could please repeat that.
So now I have in front of me the percentage also. So stage 3 is, as far as stage 3 is concerned, we have 2.48 in two-wheelers, 2.08 in MEL, 1.22 in SME, and 2.33 in SRTO loans. And the stage 2 percentage is 2.13 in two-wheeler, 1.53 in MEL loan, and
SME is 2.90
and CD is 3.54.
Sure, that is useful. So now the only question I had here is, when I look at your asset quality, and I'm sure you've touched upon it in the last question as well. Difficult to understand given that the product segments that you cater to, so micro enterprise loans, MEL, SME, two-wheeler, commercial vehicle. In Q1, all these product segments appeared very, very stressed. I mean, talk about any of these product segments. And despite that, I mean, I must compliment you. I mean, your asset quality performance has indeed been very, very good. So if you could maybe try to share some more color around this. And the other thing, sir, given that 57% of our AUM comes from, let's say, loans which are sourced by NBFCs, at least in the current environment, NBFCs which do on lending to other NBFCs, they have gradually been wanting to reduce that book. I mean, I understand that is more on lending, while what you are doing is retail loans being originated by your partner NBFCs. So indeed, there is a difference there. But at least in the current environment, most of the other NBFCs have been more comfortable with organic sourcing and reducing on lending to other NBFCs. While I see that, I mean, you kind of tend to have a niche here in terms of getting your loans sourced from other NBFCs, which I think is beautiful. So if you could just share some of your thoughts around this.
First of all, it's all about being one of them over all these years. As you know, we started with a very small size of 2 crores. Our first balance sheet size was just 2 crores. And being an NBFC, we can understand the working of the NBFCs very closely. And that puts us in good stead in being very consistent in relationships with them. And as you very rightly put, for us, these are now corporate loans or not just writing big checks. It is about reaching to the last mile, doing the last mile delivery of credit to the people who know the business the best. Because what happens is that serving the informal class, you need a very strong value chain. It is not a function of a stronger balance sheet size, but it is a function of a better and a stronger understanding. So since last 10 years, we have been working closely with majority of the NBFCs, more than 100, started with one relationship in 2010-11, soon after the AP crisis. And as I talked to you, we have more than 135 such relationships and growing. And we contribute to each other's and complement each other in a way that we, being a 25 years old organization, being larger in size, have access to credit and access to debt and understanding of the segment with over the years. We'll share our experience and they will share their demographic understanding, and we provide them the funding on a consistent basis. Just to give you an example, if something goes wrong anywhere in the economy, the first thing that the lenders think that, okay, I'm not going to write a check for 1 quarter, 2 quarters, I'm not going to fund to them. That is where we differentiate ourselves, that we know these people working because they are in the same product in which we are, and hence we have enabling the processes to maintain the quality of the assets with these NBFCs. So this has been an experience of going through what they are going through right now in our earlier stages, and that puts us in good state in understanding that. So that is the main reason of our consistent relationships with all these NBFCs. And then coming on the asset quality, as I shared earlier, that the way we have planned our distribution is such that we are making the distributors also responsible for the asset quality, and we are passing on those expected credit loss right in the interest rate we offer. As I told you, I might be working in the same segment at 18, but when I work with an NBFC, I might build in the credit operational cost and their profitability. That is where that keeps us in good stead in managing the asset quality over the years. The partner, I must compliment my partner NBFCs who have more or less, by and large, absorbed all the losses, be it DeMo, be it COVID-1, be it COVID-2. And because of our assessment in the basis of the stress capital and stress liquidity, we could maintain the good quality of the portfolio. So this is the function of the distribution network what we have. And as a practitioner, we have always believed that if you have a very strong value chain, then you can create an efficient last mile delivery of credit, which signifies that extending credit where it is due, and at the same time, everybody, each and every stakeholder benefits from this lending activities.
Sure, sir. This is useful. And sir, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I'm drawing a right example here, but the way I see your business model and the kind of relationship that you have with your partner NBFCs, I mean, would it be fair to say, let's say what let's say an Amul has done in the dairy space, you are also more like a cooperative for this large set of partner NBFCs, so that everyone kind of tends to benefit in this relationship?
So difficult for me to draw parallels, but definitely we have been working in such a manner where we have created a win-win situation for both of us. With the smaller NBFCs in terms of, as I told you, help them grow. Many of the SFBs what you are seeing right now had been our borrowers at times, so we have been catalysts in their growth. And at the same time, we could realize our objective of extending credit where it is due to the most needy class of the society.
Sure. This is very useful. That's all I had. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please limit your questions to 2 per participant. Should you have a follow-up question, would request you to rejoin the queue. The next question is from the line of Anand Bhavnani from White Oak Capital. Please go ahead.
Very good than what you would have envisaged, let's say, at the starting of phase 2. And overall, we have successfully navigated and maybe done better than our own expectation. Is that the right assessment?
Yeah, Anand, your voice is breaking. I could not really understand.
So my question is, as of today, based on our Q1 performance and our performance in FY21, do you feel that we have done very well and better than our expectation? That's my question.
I'll put it that way, that this has been our focus, and we could get the results as per our expectation. Now, because our focus has been throughout remained on maintaining consistency and strong balance sheet. And we have never been kept on goals. So we have never worried about quarterly disbursements or quarterly growth. We have always taken a medium to long-term view. So in consistency to our view and our fundamental understanding, we worked accordingly, and that has yielded the results. I'll put it that way.
Sure. So given that, we have been able to conservatively pass, maybe I would, if I had to use the word pass the COVID test, do you think there's a case for us to aggressively grow now, that given that our model has, over 25 years and more so now in COVID, done very well? Is there for us to grow, very aggressively, is my question.
See, if I share my experience as a practitioner, lending and aggressively doesn't go together. So you need to strike the balance as to how you should grow. Let me take you through how we assess the situation is that over the years we have mainly grown through internal accruals. We think that the profit you make is the right barometer of the value add you do at the marketplace. And lending is not just the business of getting capital or debt, it's about operations. So good times or bad times, the level of operations and the growth what you can manage has its own limitations. So I personally believe that we are geared up, and fundamentally we are of the belief that a growth of around 20-25% is good enough, which translates into doubling your EOM every 3 to 4 years. Will not only give you growth, but an all-round growth which translates into the development. So this is what we believe in as a practitioner of 25 years.
Sure. And if I may ask one more question, shall I go ahead?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So, given this tough environment, have you seen some of your NBFC partners, suffering heavily and being on the verge of closure? And how many of your NBFC partners do you feel that they won't be able to come back due to these two waves?
So there will be two side of things. There will be few NBFCs whose growth will be hampered. Few of the ones who are more or less normal, majority of them fall on are in that space whereby within a quarter or two they'll come back to normal. And obviously this is the time where everybody cannot pass through. So there will be few of the NBFCs which might not stand this litmus test. So in the NBFCs with whom we are working, if I just share you over this decade, we must have done a cumulative disbursement of more than 15,000 crores. And even due situation, we don't expect the losses to be more than 1% cumulatively given in this segment. So definitely some of the NBFCs will face problems, but the majority of them over a period of time will come up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Participants, to ask a question, you may press star and one now. The next question is from the line of Shubhranshu Mishra from Systematix Institutional Equities. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. Last few questions, sir. If you can give me the ROA segment-wise, and the second question is, cash credit is generally expensive, and we have it almost 31% as percentage of borrowings, and it has been at similar levels for the last few quarters. Given the fact that we are in low interest regime, any thoughts on lowering this cash credit as a percentage of borrowing, given the fact that it's expensive? And of course, if you can give me the ROA segment wise.
So I'll request Ankit to share with you ROA segment wise. That will be shared with you offline. And on your CC limit, let me tell you that we have converted this into an opportunity because of the WCDL factor. What has happened is now that around 60% has to be in the form of WCDL, that is working capital demand loan. And this working capital demand loan, as Ankit shared with you in the opening remarks, that it is a sub-part of CC limit. And this WCDL demand loans are linked to MCLR anywhere between 90 to 120 days or 180 days, depending upon the options we take, which practically is to reduce the rate of interest without creating any ALM. So CC limit for us, out of the 30% of the total CC limit, we use 60% of it. So that translates into an 18% of the total liability. And with WCDL in place, whereby the rates are very competitive, that is translated into the cost reduction in cost as compared to term loans.
Just to add on, this is the cheapest line in all my facility, because this is for the short-term nature.
Right. Sure. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Bhavesh Kanani from ASK Investments. Please go ahead.
Thank you. My question was on the partner NBFCs which are engaged in microfinance business. If you can share some comparison of how they have been behaving over last 5-6 quarters, just so that we have a better idea of the movement from stage 1 to 2 and from 2 to 3 in case of this MFI partner NBFC.
So in MFI partner NBFCs, we have close to 97 to 98% collections from in last quarters post-pandemic. And majority of them are well capitalized and they have sufficient liquidity. Might be few of them might be facing problems where we are in closely contact with them. So we are at around 97-98% of the collection efficiency even during this tough time. Gives us the confidence that they will be in a position to navigate this situation.
That's quite surprising given that large MFI players have materially inferior collection efficiency. And
that is where this intermediation plays a very important role, because what happens that they cannot pass on their collection efficiencies to the lenders, and the way we have structured the deal, we have structured the business with them is that any of the losses or any of the shortfall in liquidity has to be absorbed by them. So that is what I was sharing with all of you, that right from demonetization, where they had losses to the tune of 5 to 7%, has been absorbed through their profit or through their capital infusion, and to current where their collections has dropped to as low as 70% in some of the areas. These people have managed to be on time as far as majority of the NBFCs are concerned. And this is how we assess their structural liquidity, their liquidity position, and their capital.
okay. And sir, have we used escrow mechanism when we are dealing with partner NBFCs, that their collections from borrowers will end up in escrow and then we recover our money first and then the partner NBFC can use it for operational purpose?
So we are trying to do it through designated accounts, because escrow is a very cumbersome and a long process. So we are trying to do it through designated accounts, and the hurdle what right now we are facing is the current RBI circular as to restriction on opening accounts other than where they enjoy the limits. But just to share with you that we already started working on this idea, and within a quarter or two we would work on such a manner that we have still more closer control on their cash flows. So that will be deposited in their designated accounts. We will draw our part, they will draw their part, and whatever the shortfall is, they will make good in that account and we will receive our money rather than they just paying us on a particular date. So there will be multiple transactions involved. There should be enabling program alignment with all such partners, and we are in process of that. So within next quarter or two, we will see that absolutely functional.
Thank you. As there are no further questions, I would now like to hand the conference over to Mr. Shubhranshu Mishra for closing comments.
Thank you, participants, and thank you, management of Mass Financial.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. And please feel free to contact us for any further details. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of Systematics Institutional Equities, that concludes this conference. Thank you for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines.